Britain's opioid crisis. Drug-related deaths now reach a record high in England and Wales. Deadly new drugs, cuts in services and the pandemic are all blamed, with those over 40 most likely to see their lives ended by drugs.
I couldn't control my thoughts and my feelings, and I eventually nearly had the same fate as my Uncle Dan. I attempted suicide 3 months ago.
Also tonight, the countdown begins in Scotland, with most COVID restrictions ending on Monday, but masks will be mandatory, even in nightclubs.
Like 200 death threats a day, like I'm not even exaggerating when I say that.
Jack Grealish's girlfriend opens up about the abuse she gets online, some from kids as young as 13, and...
Right on the line, Great Britain win the medal race!
Ruling the waves and bagging double gold in the process, Team GB just keeps racking up those medals.
This is the ITV Evening News with Charlene White.
Good evening. For the past 18 months, the pandemic has understandably dominated people's lives. But away from the headlines, there's another public health emergency which is threatening to spiral out of control. Drugs. The number of drug deaths in England and Wales was today revealed to be the worst since records began nearly 30 years ago. Last year, 4,561 people died from drugs, a rise of 60% across the last 10 years alone, with a clear north-south divide emerging. Support groups say the shocking figures were a wake-up call to the government, as Hannah Miller reports.
My Uncle Dan was a lovely guy. But he sadly committed suicide in 2017 because of his addiction.
For Jake, the death of his uncle Dominic led to his own spiral of loneliness, despair and drug addiction.
I couldn't control it anymore. I couldn't control my thoughts and my feelings, and I eventually nearly had the same fate as my Uncle Dan. I attempted suicide 3 months ago because of this addiction, because I couldn't handle the pain anymore. I couldn't handle what I was putting my family through because I'd recognised it.
Jake found a lifeline at this centre, where recovering addicts like Ed also find the support they need.
They've really saved my life, there's proper structure, learn some more life skills.
Here they've had to open up an extra facility in the past year, and still they have a waiting list.
Morecambe it's full of poverty, and poverty breeds addiction, it breeds domestic violence, it breeds drug abuse, alcohol abuse, because people haven't got, and so full of stress and anxiety, and then people want to escape.
Drug-related deaths in England and Wales have risen for the 8th year in a row and are at their highest level in more than a quarter of a century. In 2020, there were more than 4,500 deaths, a 3.8% increase on the previous year, and a 60% increase compared to a decade ago. The woman who was commissioned by the government to review its drug strategy says the system is broken.
I hope this is a low point. I would say if we don't get investment, because we can't do this without financial investment, then I don't see it could get better. The things that protected people from getting involved in gangs and drugs, they've disappeared.
While today's statistics make plain the extent of this largely invisible crisis, the pain and desperation has been growing for years. In the towns that have come to be the worst affected, many feel it can no longer be overlooked. Well, the rise in people losing their lives has been hugely fuelled by an increase in deaths caused by opioids like heroin, which is why the government responded today by saying they want to make an emergency drug called naloxone more easily available so that police and paramedics can use it. It can save the lives of someone who is going through an overdose, but many people feel that more effort, even more effort, needs to go in to tackling the reasons why people become addicted in the first place.
Hannah, thank you. Well, just last week, Scotland revealed its own worst ever record for drugs. In a statement to the Scottish Parliament today, Drugs Policy Minister Angela Constance pledged £250 million for a national facility to help families affected by drug use. With 1,339 fatalities last year, Scotland has the worst drug rate in Europe. First Minister Nicola Sturgeon announced today that most COVID restrictions in Scotland will be lifted from next Monday, but she also said masks will stay compulsory in some circumstances, warning declaring victory over this virus is premature. Let's talk to our Scotland correspondent Peter Smith. So, Peter, what exactly is changing?
Well, Scotland is already at level 0 for restrictions, and that doesn't mean 0 restrictions, but we're now moving to life below 0, and that also doesn't mean no restrictions. So let's look at what it exactly does mean. From Monday, all social distancing restrictions will come to an end. Crowds of up to 2,000 will be allowed to attend indoor events like concerts, with crowds of up to 5,000 allowed to outdoor events. But any larger attendances could be allowed on a case-by-case basis with special dispensation. Nightclubs can reopen on Monday, although there is some confusion over whether dancers have to wear masks on the dance floor. Nicola Sturgeon says she'll review that. She didn't go into any detail as to how it will affect people's chances at a nightclub, of course. But you will have to wear a mask by law if you're going to a shop or in public transport. Now, that's significantly different from England, where they are only advised, and people are still being advised in Scotland to keep working from home. Now, this is Nicola Sturgeon's call to not quite Freedom Day, but certainly a step in the right direction. Here's what she said.
I'm not going to shout freedom from this virus because I think it misleads people. The virus is circulating. The risk of new variants is there. So it is no longer proportionate to, in every respect, have legal restrictions in place, and the government has to act lawfully. But yes, of course, we will continue to advise people.
No opposition parties have been critical, saying that this is confusing. But Nicola Sturgeon, while she's saying, yes, we can see what's happening in England, but she's urging Scots not to cry Freedom Day just yet, but she says it is coming soon.
OK, Peter, thank you. Golds were won, records were set, and there was, at last, a first medal on the athletics track. A dazzling day for Britain at the Olympics today. In fact, it was Team GB's biggest daily medal haul of these games so far, 8 in total. From Tokyo, our sports editor Steve Scott rounds up the action.
Able to sail closer to the breeze.
Becalmed yesterday, the sailing was anything but in Enoshima today. Britain's first gold came courtesy of Dylan Fletcher and Stuart Bithell. In a nerve-wracking finish, they squeezed home inches ahead of the German boat.
And right on the line, Great Britain win the medal race, and with it, the gold medal.
At Hollingworth Lake Sailing Club near Rochdale, Bithell's friends and family lived every second of the race.
His dreams come true, yes. From the age of 12. He wanted a gold medal, and it's happened.
The second top spot of the day was grabbed by Giles Scott, defending the title he won 5 years ago in Rio. Needing to finish at least 5th in his final race, he managed it, but only just.
Giles Scott, right at the last moment.
Scott, a man as happy as he was surprised.
Scott at the line.
I've certainly questioned whether or not I'd be capable of defending my title, and fortunately we were able to put something together, and we got it by the skin of our teeth.
It was a tale of the Kennys in the velodrome as Jason became the most successful British Olympian of all time, his team silver marking a very special milestone. Laura matched his second place as part of the women's pursuit. Gold was the only Olympic colour she knew before today, but the Germans were just far too strong. And a third title was eased from Britain's clutches. Controversially, Charlie Tanfield was smashed to the floor in the men's pursuit, a move not punished by the organisers. Pat McCormack was outclassed in his final by Cuban Ronil Iglesias, but a silver means Britain's boxing team is guaranteed to be the most successful in more than a century. Success has been hard to come by for the athletics team, but tonight that changed. 3 women went in the 800 metres final. Keely Hodgkinson ran her heart out for a brilliant silver, with Gemma Reekie agonisingly running out of steam and edged out of bronze. Keely Hodgkinson has just given the athletics team here the lift it needed. So far it's been a story of missed finals, false starts and injuries, and up until now, for the past 5 days, success of any sort had been an absent friend. Steve Scott, ITV News, Tokyo.
Well, one of the most emotional moments of the Games today was the return to action for American gymnast Simone Biles. She won a bronze medal in the beam final, her first competition since withdrawing from several events to protect her mental health. It's the 7th Olympic medal of her career. On the track, Norway's Karsten Warholm smashed his own world record by over half a second to win the 400-metre hurdles. His run is being hailed as one of the greatest in Olympics history. Right, still to come in the ITV Evening News. How the pandemic is being blamed for a boom in dog attacks on livestock, and
she rang me and she just says, "We've done it, coach, we've done it."
The 81-year-old weightlifting coach proving you're never too old for Olympic glory. Those stories and more after the break. Welcome back. Many people sought the companionship of a dog during the pandemic, but the trend seems to have had some awful consequences. Dog attacks on livestock rose sharply last year. It's thought to lock down pets, let off leads is one of the main reasons. Dog attacks on sheep and cattle cost farmers £1.3 million last year, an increase of 10% compared to 2019. And the problem seems to be getting worse. In the first quarter of this year, it's estimated the cost of attacks rose by 50%. A warning that Ben Chapman's report contains images that some viewers might find upsetting.
They're an essential part of the landscape that makes the British countryside such an attractive place to walk.
Go on, ho!
But Jonathan Hintz is among a growing number of farmers whose sheep have come under attack in the last year. 8 of his animals were injured in the spring, suffering puncture wounds after dogs were left off a lead and out of control in his field.
They were chomping at the bit with blood all round them, and it was not a nice sight, very distressing for us and also for the people that own the dogs. When I arrived on the scene, I could hear children screaming.
But even incidents that don't lead to injury can cause distress. This video of a dog worrying cattle was filmed last week, a problem that's got worse in the pandemic. The lockdowns of the last year have led many more people to get a dog and to spend more of their time in the countryside. But inexperience only accounts for some of the attacks on livestock.
Our research has shown that 64% of dog owners let their dogs roam free in the countryside off the lead, and yet half of them admit that their dog doesn't always come back when they're called, which is why we've got a problem.
No matter what the distraction, the dog needs to think that you are the most important thing there and then.
Eleanor is a dog trainer who also owns sheep and says even the best trained dogs should always be on a lead around farm animals.
If they chase sheep, they can cross a road, they can get hung up on a barbed wire fence. Obviously the farmer is legally within his right to shoot the dog. So the only people or the only things being punished in this scenario is the dog itself and the sheep.
That's why you need to put your dogs on lead.
The government plans to give the police more powers to tackle the problem, but many farmers are now calling for leads to be made a legal requirement around livestock. Ben Chapman, ITV News, Warwickshire.
A Royal Navy group which monitors maritime trade in high-risk areas has, in the last hour, warned of a potential hijack in the Gulf of Oman. Well, our political correspondent, Carl Dinnan, is outside the Foreign Office for us. Carl, what more do we know about this?
Well, the details are still very sketchy, but there does appear to be a serious incident underway off the coast of the UAE, near the port of Fujairah. Now, Whitehall sources believe that a tanker may be involved, and it's suggested that it has been taken by a group of armed men who boarded it and took control of it. The suspicion is that these men may be either Iranian or there may be some sort of Iranian
involvement in what's going on. The vessel believed to be involved is called the Asphalt Princess. It's Panamanian registered. There's no British interest in it, and there aren't believed to be any British nationals on board. So for the time being, the Foreign Office is just monitoring the situation, although clearly it's another serious incident potentially happening in a very tense part of the world.
Carl, thank you. The inquest into a convicted terrorist shot dead by police heard today how he boasted while in jail that he wanted to kill the Queen. Sadesh Aman was released despite police pleas to keep him locked up because of his extremism. He was shot after wounding 2 passers-by in a rampage with a kitchen knife, days after being let out of jail. The UK has recorded its highest daily number of COVID-related deaths since March the 17th. Another 138 people died from coronavirus, but infections have fallen again to 21,600, down 2,000 on last Tuesday. The Premier League has announced that players from all 20 clubs will continue to take the knee before the start of matches this season. It comes after England players adopted the anti-racism gesture during the Euros, sparking public debate over the decision. And Greggs expects to create around 500 new jobs as it plans to open about 100 new stores by the end of the year. The high street bakery chain returned to profit during the first half of the year as sales rebounded to pre-pandemic levels. The girlfriend of England football star Jack Grealish says she's been facing a barrage of abuse on social media. Sasha Atwood revealed she was sent up to 200 death threats a day after the Euros, including from the social media accounts of young teenage girls. Martha Fairley reports.
Rarely photographed in public, footballer Jack Grealish and his model and influencer girlfriend prefer to keep their private life private. They've been together since they were 16, but after she was sent hundreds of hate-filled messages during the Euros, Sasha Atwood told her social media followers about the abuse.
I was receiving like 200 death threats a day. Like, I'm not even exaggerating when I say that. I hope the next time when you're in the car crash it and die. I hope after Wembley you die. The scary thing is it's young girls. Like, I go on these girls' accounts who have sent me stuff and they're literally like 13, 14.
Grealish's England teammates Bukayo Saka, Marcus Rashford and Jadon Sancho were subjected to online abuse after their Euros defeat. Better regulation of social media is long overdue, says Tory MP Caroline Noakes.
This sort of behaviour is helping nobody, is extremely detrimental to people like Sasha, and I can think of other examples before her, particularly Jessie Nelson went through something very similar. And it's time that the social media companies use the algorithms that are at their disposal to stop this sort of endemic trolling.
Facebook, which owns Instagram, says we have strict rules against bullying and harassment on Instagram, and violent threats are completely unacceptable. We understand how distressing this is for Sasha and those who've experienced similar abuse, and we're investigating. Sasha Atwood says she's staying on social media in spite of the trolls. Martha Fairley, ITV News.
Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York, today publicly paid tribute to her former husband, Prince Andrew, calling him a good man. Speaking on ITV's Lorraine, she was asked about the difficulties of the past year, but said it has been a joy to see him shine as a grandfather. Prince Andrew has faced criticism over his relationship with disgraced billionaire Jeffrey Epstein.
Prince Andrew is just such a good man. You know, he's a really thoroughly good man. He's a very gentle man. He's a really good father. We did co-parent very well, hence the reason why our girls are very, very solid and feet on the ground. But now, as a grandfather, oh my goodness, you know, he's really good.
Finally, it was one of the brilliant moments of the Olympic Games so far, the scream of sheer joy from Emily Campbell when she won Britain's first ever women's weightlifting medal. A joy shared, but perhaps not so loudly, by her coach, Cyril Martin, who's 81 years old. Stacey Foster went to meet him.
On the middle of an industrial estate in the Derbyshire town of Alfreton, Olympic dreams are made. Cyril Martin is in charge. At 81 years old, he's just got his first Olympic medal as a coach.
Oh my God, you know, what have we done? How fantastic was that? In a little place like Alfreton,
we've got one of the best gyms in the world and the best standard in the world.
Cyril's star student is Emily Campbell, who made history in Tokyo yesterday, becoming the first ever British female to win a weightlifting medal at the Olympics.
She rang me and she just says, "We've done it, coach, we've done it." And that's pretty much all she had time to say. But, you know, I can imagine how emotional she was, because I was emotional, my wife was.
And with the Olympic silver medal now in her hands, Emily is already thinking about bringing it home to her coach.
He is a very calm, cool, collected character, and he never really raises his voice at all. I could not have done this without him. He, you know, gives me his time, his passion. He really cares.
I have to have a photograph taken with a medal. I mean, the one where I've got three goals from the Europeans. That's for you, coach, you were saying.
Presumably you've got no plans to stop at 81.
I keep saying, oh, you know, I think I'm ready for a rest, and yeah, but I won't, because it's, you know, that's my life.
So a gold in Paris in 3 years' time is definitely not out of the question. Stacey Foster, ITV News, Alfreton in Derbyshire.
Oh, never stop, Cyril. Right, that's it from us. We'll be back at 10. So until then, enjoy your evening. Bye-bye.